call the regular representative town meeting to order. It is 7:04. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
All right, and those of you who are online,
Recording
I do see
in progress.
I can see everybody who is online. Adams? She's here. Yes. Bailey?
I gotta talk.
Bailey, I see you. Oh, I see him. Burrell? Here. Bright? Here. Casper? I see you, Casper. Surf?
Here. Casper here.
Yeah, I saw you. Surf, I don't see. Chase? Here. Cop? Here. Crockett Hubbard? Dean Shinbrot? I see you online.
Here.
Mm-hmm. Eben?
Here.
Frickman?
Here.
Pritchie? Gardner? Gothier? Guinapiero? Here. Gustafson? He'll be here later. Hainline? Hanscom? I see you online. Yep. Ivy? Jacome? Massett?
Here.
Merritt? Is ill. Norman? Aubry? No. Okay. Perry? He's said no. Powers? Kristen?
Here.
Powers Sean? Here. Pacino? Here. Ray?
She said no.
Okay. Scott? Here. Cimarero? Thomas? Here. B.C. Williams? I see you. Yep. Watson? Here. Weaver? Wells? I see you.
Here.
Okay. Whitney?
Here.
And Rusk. I have 27, but I know that there's
Here.
2 more coming. So.
Before we do our moment
Bailey
of
here.
silence.
Thank you, Mr. Representative Bailey. Gotcha.
Before we do our moment of silence, I just want to acknowledge Representative Lee White. She was from District 3 and passed on September 24th. I didn't think I would cry. She will be very missed by all of us. There's a card being sent around. If you have something that you'd like to say to her daughter, I ask that you please put it on the card. I'll mail it out tomorrow. So if we could have a moment of silence. Representative Pacino, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on our agenda is the approval of minutes. Are there any corrections that need to be made to the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes will be approved as is. Next up is receipt of public petitions. This is the portion of the RTM agenda where the RTM welcomes comments from the public. Each presentation should be limited to 5 minutes and submitted in written comment if possible. Presentations should be limited to matters pertinent to the town of Groton. The moderator or members through the moderator shall ask questions only in order to clarify the speaker's presentation. Responses may be given by the moderator and/or the town manager. Individuals should state their name and address for the record. I have one person, Ms. Fetters, if you want to come up. Good evening.
How are you doing today? Sandra Fetters, 28 Brantford Ave.
I'm going to ask you to pull that microphone.
I know, I'm so short. I'm sorry. guys doing tonight? I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. I've never spoken in front of a large group of people before. I live in Brantford Manor, and I'm sure everybody's well aware of what's going on over there. I've had a rough day today. Excuse me for a second. I've been displaced out of my home for 148 days because of the mold. I'm sick. I have lung disease. My child is experiencing seizures when she's in that apartment. She's been seizure-free for like 145 days. She went back to that apartment to collect some belongings, and that day she had a seizure. I have hypersensitivity and pneumonitis. It's farmer's lung. It's from breathing in mold for the last 8 years. I have asthma now, and I have no idea when these attacks are coming, if I'm going to be able to breathe. And thank God for those little rescue inhalers, because if it wasn't for
At
that,
the beginning of my RTM meeting.
I'm sorry, hold on one second. We'll-
Crazy bullshit, but I.
What happened?
Somebody was on mute.
Oh,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
oh, that's okay. Related management, they have not been very nice to us at all. I'm still paying my rent in an apartment that I am no longer to be able to occupy. My doctor's telling me to abandon my apartment, which I did. He told me to abandon all my things, my possessions, in any other apartment like that, and I have. We're in this hotel because of the mold. They're supposed to fix the mold so I can return. They have not fixed the mold, and they're not willing to provide air quality tests to prove that it's safe for me to go back in there. I have no furniture to return to with, and without any air quality testing, it's a suicide mission for me. My children will watch me die in that apartment. On May 15th, my lips were turning blue. I was suffocating in that apartment from that mold. I did not think I was going to survive it, but I did. My lungs are now damaged. My kids are sick, and the hotel that we're in now, every day it's, you have to leave. We're not paying for the hotel anymore. I have nowhere to go. I cannot go back to Brantford until that mold has been remediated. They keep saying they're going to remediate it quickly. You cannot remediate mold that's been sitting in that apartment for 50 years. The integrity of the structures, I'm sure, have been compromised. Everything has to be gutted out of those apartments in order for me to return to safe living conditions. They promised safe, healthy living conditions, and that has not been provided. We are refugees now from mold and from Brantford Manor, and I don't know when we're going to return. My furniture is gone. They want me to return, buy me new furniture. They want me to go back into an apartment. They have to do an air quality test to at least show that there's no mold, and they're not willing to do that. That's a suicide mission for me and my family, and that is just intolerable.
it's okay.
And the next step now, they extended our stay for one more day. I don't know where we're going to go. I have nowhere to go. They told me we had to leave at noon last Wednesday, and it was 12:05 when this happened. Thank God we got to stay extended, and now we're supposed to leave it again tomorrow. To where? Where am I going to go with my kids? And now they extended our stay until Friday. It's harassment, it's abuse, and I have never, ever in 1,000 years thought I would be at the age of 52 with 2 kids and being homeless. I pay my rent every month. I'm still paying my rent for an apartment I cannot live in. So I hope you guys can hear our cries and somebody please help us. Because if not, the next time somebody's speaking up here, it's going to be one of my family members of a wrongful death. Because that's the alternative. That's what's going to happen. And I don't want to die in front of my kids. I thank you guys very much. I appreciate your time and your ears. Thank you. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Hold on, we'll do receipt of citizens petition, or we'll ask comments at the end.
Oh,
Is there anybody else?
Comment now, I have a question of the speaker.
Is there a clarifying question?
Sure it is.
What's your clarifying question, please?
Thank you, Ms. Fetters, for coming here tonight. I just wanted to ask what you think this body can do for you.
That's not a clarifying.
It needs to be a clarifying question.
That's a clarifying question. I want to know.
That's a discussion
she's
question. That's a discussion. It's a discussion. We're not in the middle of a discussion. It's not an
I'm asking
agenda.
a clarifying question.
It's an agenda.
She has laid out a problem, and I'm asking if there's a solution that she envisions.
Okay.
Could this have something to do with your role in getting that tax abatement?
No,
Okay.
thank you. You can sit down. Thank you. Thank you.
That was rude, too.
Absolutely inappropriate. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak tonight? Go ahead.
We live at 159 Mather Avenue, Groton, Connecticut. We've been in a hotel now for just over a month, and we were told that we're going to be homeless tomorrow because no work has been done on our apartment. They showed us a temporary unit, and work needs to be done on that unit as well, and there's been no communication on both. There was something that was said on the news recently and at a town meeting that Brantford is the only low-income housing here in Groton, and I sent out a clarifying email. I did my best to attach all the appropriate people, but there's a portion of the email that I hope to try to clarify. I was showing my neighbor the low-income housing list that I attached to that email, and she said to me, yeah, but there's only 2 locations here in Groton that are open to just families. Everything else is only elderly or disabled. And I said to her, I'm sorry. I said to her, you qualify for disabled. And she's like, oh, well, I was under the impression that you had to go through like Social Security and do all of that jazz. And I'm like, no. All you got to do is get a letter from like your primary care. And I was actually talking about her children, not entirely her. Sorry about my daughter. I told her, like, okay, so you qualify for this one, and we were ending the conversation, and I said, well, you qualify for the one in Knowing. And so this is why we are needing additional services. I feel that some of the properties here in Groton that are only elderly or only disabled, can we start visiting those as potential options of opening up some of the units to as family housing and not only elderly and only disabled, so that there's more options in the area. But I also feel that Brantford needs to close down its waiting list, and they need to send out letters of anybody who is on the waiting list saying that they're dissolving the waiting list, so that we're not bringing people here, because we've only lived here in Connecticut for 10 months. We came from Washington State with just our suitcases, and we came here under false pretenses. And I'm just exceptionally frustrated that, we have nowhere to go. We have no one. We have no supports. We don't have a couch surfing support. I have not yet had the opportunity to call 211. I've been in shelters before, and I don't want my daughter exposed to that. But, I was late to this meeting because I was frantic attempting to pack and get everything stored in a moldy apartment while we figure out homelessness, and we were extended for one more day. But this is not healthy for my daughter's development, and it's really, really, really not fair. But we need some sort of social, so Brantford said that they were going to provide social work services and those other things, I don't know, maybe it said like $15,000 a year or something along those lines, which they have neglected for 5 years. No matter how much any council person on either side brings it up, or if residents bring it up, they're not going to provide it. So I ask for the other councils, what can be done to start providing the services? The conversation that my neighbor and I had, that needs to be had with other neighbors. She didn't realize she qualified for something. Yes, let's start getting on those other housing waiting lists. How about getting people who are already on housing waiting lists bumped up to the top? How do you get bumped up to the top? I know how to do that. And at I think it was the town, one of the ones I testified at, I said, does anybody know how to navigate the HUD housing waiting list? And I want the town and city and who else is able to start educating themselves on how to navigate this all. You know, what do all of the what does everything mean, and you know, start helping the residents and the people.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, you're out of time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you have a clarifying question?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ms. Levy, just a clarifying question. I did receive your email, and I was planning to speak to it on a communication of reports tonight, so please stay tuned for that. But just in your inquiries, were you able to determine who, for those elderly and disabled housing complexes, who determined that they were only for elderly or disabled? Do you know if it's a planning and zoning thing, or was it a private company that decided that, or what's the situation?
It's both. It is how, it's a combination of both. And so, to my potential understanding, the town or city could potentially approach them and say, okay, so you have like X amount of units. Can we please start negotiating and take 5 of those units and make it family and leave the rest elderly and leave them disabled? This is actually starting to become common in the HUD realm. Like, they will take an entire complex, and some of it will be just standard average housing. You have to make 3 times the rent. Some of it will be okay, you don't have to make 3 times the rent, but we're going to rent to you. And some of it will be elderly and disabled, and some of it will be family HUD, where depending on your income, or if you have no income, they will rent to them. And they will have an entire complex made up of all of that in there. I know of a complex in, forgive me, I always say it wrong, but Worcester, Massachusetts. I try my best. I'm not from here. I know of a complex that does that here, and they're doing a lot more of that. So when you walk past a neighbor, you don't know, are they employed or not employed? Are they on disability or not disability? And so they want to make it more inclusive. And so I would imagine that you guys could eventually approach the list that I gave you guys and say, you know, you guys have X amount of units, you know, what can we start negotiating? But it also depends on how they have chosen to become contracted with HUD, or if they are contracted with HUD. There are 2 properties that are not on there. They are not HUD contracted, but they are tax abatement. And so there are certain income guidelines, but they will accept housing vouchers.
I think
quick
this
question
is,
on that.
I'm going
Which-
to interrupt here for a quick second. I
Right.
think this is more of a conversation for the town council and for the town manager.
Okay,
I don't think this
just want to
is
ask one
something.
quick question, follow up on that. The two places that are not on the list, what was the name of those?
Spruce Meadows was one, and Deerfield
Deerfield, okay.
was the other.
And they were receiving tax abatements, but they are not HUD.
Yes.
Correct, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak during citizens' petitions?
Portia Bordelon, 24 Jefferson Drive, speaking today as a taxpayer, a citizen. For full disclosure, I'm also a town councilor. First, I'd like to state, I know you have an item tonight about the rules. As a person who served on the RTM for 2 terms, I'm shocked that the press, a lot of times they always talk about what we've done in the past as our precedent, how we got there. People have always been able to speak. I'm a taxpayer first before being an elected official. And so on a night of an RTM meeting, this is my chance to come up with my complaints, even as a counselor, to voice my concern outside of that. And I feel, as an ex officio member, I should be able to exercise that right here publicly for 5 minutes. But if you would prefer me to send my time in to speak as an ex officio member, I can just speak then under that. It just makes sense to get it done here. But that's up to you guys, and it's up to interpretation. So anyway, with that, I'm here, as I stated before. I will continue to come and stand with Brantford Banner. I went down there Thursday. I got invited in with the mayor of the city, the manager, town manager of the town, went into Unit 155, and recently a young lady, as it stated in the newspaper, had passed. Not sure that it's related to the mold, but we did receive some emails recently that the black mold levels there were higher than any other place that they had inspected, and it was the bad mold. It was black mold. I will also state, when I was there, I left with a headache. I'm a person who never has a headache. I also felt tightening in my chest. My lips felt a little tingly, like kind of burning, and my skin and my face felt itchy. I went in with an N95 mask and glasses on, washed on the way in, washed on the way out. It was disturbing to see Building 18's condition. After further research and looking into the city records, I found complaints, and I won't say the person's name. If you're interested, you can look it up, but I won't say the name because I didn't ask to say her name today. But she was moved to 2 different units in that building. There's a complaint on file from over a year and a half ago about mold. Pictures I received today, people calling me, floor buckled, couldn't even open up the door, pipe burst underneath. She was left in that unit for 6 months post the rupture of the pipe, and then moved to another moldy place a few doors down, while her son was experiencing swelling, eye redness. This person now has lupus and a lot of autoimmune diseases. Several other people have been in that unit. One lady that I met there is still in that unit. She was removed out a few days for some renovations. She's still one of the people still in that unit, Building 18, that was one of the worst ones that I've seen. I am concerned. I'm baffled how $42,000 per unit supposedly went into each of these units. In a place that's only barely 1,000 square feet, where'd the money go? What did they fix? I see new color on the outside. I'm concerned that the mold, if you can't see it, it doesn't exist kind of philosophy, but no one's cutting open or taking the board down and sending a scope in and looking around. It's behind it. Every time a tenant leaves, they paint. You don't see it. After they're there for a while, it starts to seep through. I just hope, as a community, the RTM is a body that's supposed to represent our community. That was the purpose of it. It has a financial stake, as you know, but it also has a community responsibility. And I urge and encourage people from this body to help stand with the people of Brantford Manor. I will continue to stand. I'm thankful to my fellow council members, and that the town council last night did put related affordable in deferment of their obligations in that contract, but it took us a long time to get there, and we got it. Hopefully the city will follow suit. I just do not want to see another person have to struggle like this. There is no other low-income housing. The way this was set up in the town of Groton, I've been speaking from day one, we need more affordable housing for families. Putting them all in one section of town, boxed together with the 442 units with no way out, is not considered good quality life. I can agree with Val. One of the models out west is you do staggered income housing. One of the things I'd love this town to go out to RFP for is where you do have someone that's paying $3,000, another person that's paying $1,000, maybe someone else is getting a modified income for $500. We need that kind of housing here. No one should have to say, oh, I live in Brantford, and you say, oh, they're low income.
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you. So I encourage anything you can do, write letters, speak up, stand with them, volunteer, go down there, ask to see some of these units. That's the way that everybody can get involved. They need support down there. Simple things, you know, ways in which that you can be a voice to help them. And I will continue to come and stand up and speak in support of the families of Brantford Manor any way that I can. And I hopefully this will get better with time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak tonight? All right. Is there any other receipt or any other comments, any other clarifying questions that need to be asked? Okay. Town manager's report, please.
Good evening.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry. Receipt of communications. I'm sorry, I had something written under there. I will start with saying that I got an email from Representative Gustafson, Ray, and Gardner that they would not be here tonight, and Representative Merritt also is unable to come tonight, and I will go from there. I believe Representative Thomas, you wanted to speak?
Gustafson's going to
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator. All right, so I received a few emails. Let's see, in regards from Valerie Levy. She sent an email regarding the situation you just spoke about as far as the HUD housing. Let's see. So I don't want to reiterate too much, but the key point here is that she's asking for help in regards to determining other housing options, as now the default's been enacted on unrelated. I would like to make a referral to the moderator to consider forming a task force within the RTM to look into this and to do a research and report mission on
Put that in writing.
the available housing and available options, like I asked earlier, like, who determines elderly, disabled, that sort of thing. We could do like an ad hoc committee of some kind.
Can you put it in writing exactly what you want so that it's not confused?
Sure, I'll follow up with you with
Perfect.
an email.
Thank you.
But you're open to that?
I would love to read it, and we'll make a decision then.
Very well done. All right, so I also received had a couple exchanges with the town manager in regards to, I got an email from a constituent asking about the zoning officials ruling many months ago. You guys maybe remember this. He issued a letter determining data centers to be telecommunication sites, and that's what sort of let us get into the whole host fee agreement debate and debacle. And so this constituent wanted to know and had put in an FOI request for all communications, and also wanted to see the conceptual plans that that were submitted, that the zoning official used to determine that these were telecommunication devices. So I followed up on that, and I've been in contact with the town manager, and he is working with the planning department to get all the communications between the zoning official and the planning department and the conceptual plans. I have the conceptual plans in hand, which I'll forward around to the RTM later tonight. Suffice to say that they're rather scant, and I look forward to seeing the rest of the communications regarding this matter. I'll just forward that whole chain, honestly, to everybody. Let's see, I also received, I was in exchange of emails with the town manager regarding the proposed town council rule changes, asking for some clarification on the response to citizens' petitions concerns brought forth by the mayor. And just wanted to clarify, because he had made some comments about receiving complaints about FOI, and the town manager said there were no official complaints actually filed. It was more anecdotal complaints. And I also received an email from a constituent named J.C. Amboise, who wrote to me saying, "Greetings, Mr. Thomas. It has come to my attention that due to a recent redistricting within the state of Connecticut that you are now a District 2 representative on the Groton Town RTM. This is the district to which I reside. Based on your recorded policy positions and voting record, I have several questions that I would like to get clarification on. Please let me know when there is a convenient time to discuss in person." To which I replied, "Mr. Amboise, I thank you for your continued interest and engagement on civic matters. I am glad to open a line of dialogue with you. However, to be clear, I should make you aware that technically the redistricting does not take full effect on a local level until the next municipal election cycle in 2023. Perhaps you may take some comfort in knowing that whatever confusion or misgivings you may be experiencing in regard to my recorded policy positions and voting record, I am not yet officially representing your district. You will have the opportunity to help determine your official elected representative delegation next year. However, as you likely noticed, I do make an effort to highlight the impending change most times when I communicate, as a personal effort to steadily raise awareness of the change that is coming. As of right now, I am undecided as to whether or not I will run for a D2 RTM seat in 2023. As you well know, due to your position as Groton City Democratic Committee Chair, I have put my name forward to that body to be considered for inclusion on the endorsed slate for Groton City Council candidates. If I am included as a member of the endorsed slate of City Democrats, that may well affect my interest, availability, and desire to run for a town RTM seat. So your concerns about my representation of your interests on the RTM may end up becoming a moot point. That being said, however, I am ready, willing, and able to respond to any concerns any constituent may have, regardless of their particular district. For the sake of efficiency and avoiding the conflicting schedules feedback loop, it's been my experience that it seems best to practice to encourage any constituent to articulate their concerns in as much detail as they can manage in a letter or email and send that to me to be considered, reflected upon, and responded to in kind. I invite you to do just that. As for meeting in person, I would suggest that we do not overcomplicate the situation. Again, to avoid the conflicting schedules feedback loop, I would suggest you simply come to one of the RTM, Town Council, City Council meetings where they allow for public comment. I am in regular attendance for those and often arrive early so as to get settled in or signed up, respectively. I look forward to engaging in a civil dialogue with you about your concerns via these aforementioned avenues. That's all I got. Thank you.
Anyone else? I do have a few other things. I got a late email from Representative Surf and Hainline. There was an email forwarded from Roseanne Katowski around regarding MOSA that I think everyone received, so I'm not going to read that. You didn't get it? I'll make sure it gets forwarded to you. I thought it went to everyone, but I'll make sure. Okay. I will forward that to everyone then. There was a question again about busing. So I had asked about, busing regarding to people in Brantford Manor that had been moved to hotels. I did some digging. I didn't get a clear answer, but my understanding is that everyone who is in a hotel is either getting busing or curtain. If that is not true and someone wants to contact me, please do so. And then there had been a question regarding the water levels. We've obviously gotten a lot of rain, and the water level is at 87% for Groton Utilities, just something else that I received. Also, I got, I believe this went to everyone. If it didn't, again, I will send it. Noank Fire Department open house. Noank Fire Company will host an open house on Saturday, October 15th, 2022, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., rain or shine. Stop by and talk with one of our members about current volunteer opportunities and more. So I believe you all got that. If not, I will forward that also. Did everybody get that? Yes, everybody got that one. Okay, so just the MOSA one. Okay. Town Manager's Report. Mr. Burt? Thank you.
Hello again.
Hello again. Thank you.
Can't hear him.
Financial report?
Can you turn up your volume quite a bit? See if we need to turn it up on this side.
Here's the mic.
I think that's better. Speak.
Okay, can you hear me?
Much better, thank you.
Okay. Financial report. Preliminary fund balance as of June 30th, 2022, unaudited, is approximately $36.1 million, which is 26% of the FYE 2022 general fund adopted budget. Final numbers for FYE 22 will be available once all year and entries have been posted. And keep in mind, we'll be eating into that as part of the budget for revenues. The general contingency budget for FY23 was appropriated at $300,000. We have not touched that yet. And the capital reserve fund balance as of June 30th, 22 is estimated at $1.5 million. Also, final numbers available once all year-end entries have been posted. Other updates for the American Rescue Plan Act, the ARPA dollars, the Long-Term Recovery Committee passed a motion recommending the top 20 scoring projects to the town council. to be funded. Of course, the town council can do whatever they want with that. They don't have to stick with that. They can decide how to proceed, and then once they're done, it would be on to the RTM then to vote on it. The Brantford Manor, as it was already mentioned, so they are at default, and we're working through that. Finance director, that has been posted again. Applications are due the end of the week, so fingers crossed we'll get some good applicants. Let's see. The Public Works, we had some complaints about the big submarine sign that you see from the highway. We had some complaints that brush trees were blocking the view. You couldn't see it until you right up on it. So we received a permit from DOT to clear the trees and unblock that. So we'll be doing that soon. Athletic field work by the town hall complex. The irrigation's done, and they were hydro-seeding it. We were hydro-seeding it yesterday. I think I saw it. And the milling and paving on Buddington Road, I believe, began this week. And I'll send out a larger update tonight for you. That's the highlights.
Thank you, John. I see that the town mayor is here. You had wanted to speak during communications and didn't quite make it. Do you want to speak now? Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry for being late. Got stuck in a little bit of traffic. I just came here to address the RTM. I wrote a letter since this is communication, so I've got a letter written and I'll submit it to the town clerk so that we can it can be sent out to the whole body. It reads, "We've all heard the horrific stories about the living conditions in Brantford Manor. Mold, rats, ventilation, and humidity level problems. Families have been displaced from their homes and are currently living in hotels funded by Related, the owners of Brantford Manor. Unfortunately, Related is threatening to withdraw that funding any day. It's imperative that the town steps in if and when Related pulls the funding. Otherwise, these families will not have anywhere to go, many of them with young children. In light of this, I've referred for the next Committee of the Whole meeting a discussion on setting up an Affordable Housing Trust Fund. A few things the Affordable Housing Trust Fund can be used for: emergency rental assistance, foreclosure prevention, and repairs in existing affordable housing units. Of course, there is the matter of where the funding will come from, which is why I'm before you today. Any approval of an Affordable Housing Trust Fund will likely have to go through the RTM. I'll explain briefly what I believe the funding source should be. Groton was designated a distressed municipality in 2021 and recently received the same designation for 2022. One of the opportunities of being on this list is that the town can decide to raise their conveyance fee. Conveyance fee is part of the closing costs whenever a home is sold in Groton. This would allow for money that would typically leave Groton to remain in our community. This money must be used to address issues within the community, and I believe the best way is to use it to set up this fund. Due to the time sensitivity, I plan to move as fast as possible in setting up this fund, and if successful, I hope that I receive support from the RTM. Thank you, and as always, thank you, as always, for your service to the town.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay. The Economic Development, there's no one here from Economic Development. I did ask that they come next month, please, so that we haven't had a update.
They are confirmed for next month.
Excellent.
Thank you. Wonderful. We are moving on to liaison reports. Representative Bright? No, committee reports come next. Liaison reports come first.
We did reverse that. I don't know what happened. Yeah,
You're right, we did. It's on the agenda this way. We're going to keep it this way for tonight. We'll move it next month.
Yeah, it just drives you crazy.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome to my world of crazy legislative programs.
Representative Bright?
Thank you. The red light's on, but
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, the Citizen and Police Committee met on the 22nd of September, 2022, in the Groton Town Police Department. Meeting called to order at 5:01 p.m. Committee members present were Chair Dela Cruz, Erickson, Parfit, and Chief Fasaro. Others present were Councilor Kassiri, Town Manager Burt, Deputy Chief Gately, and of course myself. The 11 July 22 meeting minutes were approved. Under communications received by the committee, the Groton Town Police Department was praised by the National Police Foundation publication for the good work that they do. So it is being recognized. Citizens' complaint and policy process, they went over that in some pretty good detail. Deputy Chief Gately presented an in-depth discussion on the policy and the processes and how they handle them. These policies and processes can be found on the Groton Town Police website, as well as the form to be used if you want to file a complaint. The website also has a list of the complaints and praise letters, for the different officers. State attorneys and citizens can input into the policies and procedures, and it's an ongoing deal. The policies and procedures are never static. There's always changes, mandated changes, unmandated changes. They also get input from state's attorneys and also from the citizens, because sometimes the citizens will point out something that shouldn't be. Right now, there's updates of 135 policies and procedures are ongoing right now by Deputy Chief Gately. Accreditation update. The Groton Town Police Department will be going through the process for POST and CALIA in the near future. The POST is the Police Officer Standards and Training. I'm not sure what CALIA stands for. These acronyms sometimes get out of hand. Projects updates. They are updating the locker room. We had, approved money for the updating the men's locker room, which I did a tour of it, and it was in pretty bad shape. They're also installing dash cams. They do have body cams, but they're now putting dash cams in the cars. They are processing for a nuclear safety grant. This is in case of nuclear accidents, like at Millstone, so forth. And they're looking at installing neighborhood cameras. Training, Chief Fasaro presented an in-depth discussion of training staff and scheduling, which is continuous. In other words, they're training continuously every day. Staffing update, 70 positions budgeted, and 69 are filled. He did go over and says it takes approximately 1 year of training before a new officer is ready to be on his own. So in other words, when they come out of the academy and they go to work for the town, it takes approximately a year for them to be able to go on their own. Staffing falls into 3 areas: sworn, which are the officers, dispatch, and support. They do have 4 openings in the dispatch area. They have 3 going into the police academy and 3 are graduating. So we should be able to have a good input for officers. And it also takes approximately 1 year of training for a dispatch person to be able to handle the dispatching on their own. Community policing efforts. Of course, there was the National Night Out. They have the Blue Envelope Project. Does everybody know what that is? Okay. People who have communications problems and so forth, they give them these blue envelopes. And when they come in contact with a police officer, they hand them that blue envelope. And it will explain, what their problem is, so that the officer will be updated on what the problem might be for the person. And then they're looking at a future Citizens Police Academy, where they're going to actually be able to take people and go through what the officers go through, not entirely, but at least to give us a feel for what it does. Awards, on 6 October, Awards will be were presented to the Groton Police Department, and on 14th October, the Elks Officer of the Year was presented. Under the other business open forum, people were urged to watch out for the candy. You've probably all seen on the news with the fentanyl. They're, brightly colored. They look like, pieces of candy. So they're urging all parents to be aware of what their kids are getting, because fentanyl is pretty dangerous. Fentanyl is lethal, and it doesn't have to be swallowed. If it comes in contact with your skin, it can be lethal. I did bring up Representative Surf's concerns with noise in the community, and Chief Asaro stated that the Groton Town Police Department follows the state requirements. The meeting was adjourned at 6:48 p.m., and again, the meeting was recorded and posted if you want to, hear the actual information. Yes, question.
Representative Evan.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I just wanted to ask about those neighborhood cameras. Where are they putting them, and why are they putting them up? And then what are they hoping to see with these cameras?
Well,
Thank you.
I'm not exactly sure. They haven't installed them yet, but they're looking at maybe getting some kind of a grant or something.
So I would like to comment on that. These were the cameras that we approved, and they were for emergencies. And like floods and things like that. Representative Brill, do you have more comments on that?
My committee discussed it. We talked to the chief about that. These are from a grant for a nuclear disaster. In case millstone goes up, and there's cameras at key intersections so they can monitor the evacuation routes, making sure nothing's getting clogged up and everything else. That's what the cameras are for. No, they'll be used all the time, but they were put in place in these key intersections. That's the reason why they're there, but they're going to be able to be used all the time.
Representative Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Yeah, that was discussed during the Public Safety Committee meeting, and I did ask those questions. So if you want to, I'll send you the link to the meeting so you can review his answers on that. A question for Representative Bright. Was there any discussion, you guys discussed the civilian complaint process?
Yes, it was discussed in quite detail. If you watch the
Understood.
recording.
I'm more interested to know, was there any discussion of like volume of complaints and current, how many complaints have been handled in the past year or so?
Yes, they had a list.
And how many have been cleared?
Yes, they had a list, and it's posted on the website.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Representative Watson.
Thank you. I just got me now.
Pick it up. Pick it up.
Help me out here. You hear me?
Yes.
I was wondering what the state requirements are for the noise.
They didn't go into that. They just said they followed the state mandates.
Because I'm sure Representative Surf is going to ask that. So
Okay.
I'm not trying to be funny,
No,
but
it's true.
and I
Right.
would actually like to know too.
Well, okay.
The
Well,
decibels.
I'll do some research, find out what they are.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, Representative Chacon, Town Council.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Town Council Liaison Report for October. The Town Council met for their regularly monthly Town Council meeting on October 4th at 6:30 at the Town Hall Annex. I would like to give a little shout out to Sean Greenlee, who was able to secure the grants for the technology up there. So because of that, the council was able to meet up there. He does a wonderful job, so praise to him. There were several citizens' petitions, comments, and concerns regarding Brantford Manor rules changes and the Mystic Oral School. The council approved the Dodea grant, which is before us today, and the council approved the Groton ambulance lease for 2022. And the next regular town council meeting is scheduled for November 1st, 6:30 at the Town Hall Annex. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Evan, long-term recovery.
Thank you. Yes, our long-term recovery committee met, I think it was a week and a half ago, and we prior to that, about 3 weeks prior to that, we had received a list of all the applications to the ARPA funding call that the Planning and Development Office had put out. I believe there were like 56. I'm looking at one of my fellow members. There were a lot of them. Sorry, I didn't count them. They weren't enumerated, so it wasn't easy to count. You'd have to go through it. And we were given a spread, basically criteria, 4 criteria with which to grade them. So everyone on the committee had engaged in an evaluation activity, which we had submitted these 2 weeks prior to our meeting. And then the staff from the planning department had basically entered that and averaged those scores and ranked them in order, basically highest to lowest. And so we, at the meeting then, we were given this material ahead of time, and we kind of went through it. And as Mr. Burt said, decided motion was made to accept the top 20, which I think actually exceeded the amount of funding that was available. So I think there will have to be some trimming involved. As Mr. Burt said, the town council can really do whatever they want with our recommendation, but there's really not as much money as there were requests for money. So there you go. I hope that. Any questions?
It is surprising.
And everything was confidential, so I'm just kind of I'm not going to name anything.
Representative DeCoe.
I'll just ask Representative Evan, when is it going to hit the council? Do you know by chance?
I'm imagining it might, I don't know, we can ask, there's a town councilor here. I'm imagining it will be at their next meeting, but I don't know.
This is John.
Oh, thanks, John. There you go.
Just to mention, we already have a very full agenda for the 25th, so and then the hard part is the holidays. So we'll have to see, because we only have one meeting in November, I believe, and one in December. So we got to try to fit it in. So I can't commit to when it's going to be on there.
Mr. Burke, could you just, how many applications were received? Was it around 56? That was my kind of vague memory.
I believe it was really close to that.
Okay, thank you.
Let me see if I have it written anyway. I don't know if I get here.
It's not important. I wanted to give you guys a sense of the magnitude. There were quite a lot to read all.
When I send my report out, I'll put it on there just so you have it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Representative Casper for Gulf Report.
No meeting, no report.
Thank you. Representative Aubry for EDC. Representative Aubry. See if she gets back.
There, but unmute.
I'll move on. Representative. Oh, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Somebody had shut me off. But anyways, for the EDC meeting, the biggest thing that they were discussing is the fact that they need new members. They have 2 long-term members leaving, and they no longer have enough people for a quorum. So if you know anybody that would like to be on the positive side of growth in Groton, this is an excellent committee for them to be part of. And that was probably, and also they are still working on recreating the GBA. And you'll be hearing more about that in the very near future. Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Representative Chase, did you guys have a meeting? No meeting. Okay, thank you. All right, then we are moving on to committee reports. The first one is finance. Chair Powers read his minutes last month for the establishment of a property tax abatement for surviving spouse of fallen emergency workers. Do you want to give a quick rehash on the recommendations of the committee?
August 3rd meetings. I do not have the September meeting minutes. The brief overview of the committee when we discussed the abatement involved a variety of different subject matter. And basically, we vetoed the motion. I believe it was Chairman Scott that vetoed it. It was seconded. We had quite a bit of discussion about how it was structured, who it impacted. We had federal employees, I believe, still in it. Then they took it out. That was the second meeting we had. But all in all, we found that the language was not correct. We didn't feel that the abatement was in the interest of the public, and so we vetoed it. We brought it here, and last meeting we were unable to have a
We didn't have the
proper
number
of votes.
We didn't have the correct ordinance at the time in the agenda, so we wanted to make sure everybody had the correct ordinance before we move forward.
I wish I had my other meeting minutes. I have August. Let me look
I
again.
was gonna get it up here.
So from the original ordinance to the new ordinance, there were 4 major changes. And Town Manager Burke, correct me if I'm wrong, but it removed federal employees. It added volunteer firefighters. The tax abatement is at 50% with a maximum of $2,000 per year. And if you remember correctly, the last time it came to us, it said if you were remarried, it went away, but then if you got divorced, it came back. So once you remarry, it goes away. It no longer is in effect.
That is correct.
Okay, but you all have a copy of it in your agenda? I need a motion on the floor. Representative Burrell.
I make a motion to veto this.
Okay,
And I will second that.
okay, Representative Chase seconded, Representative Scott, whichever one you want to write down. Okay, discussion. Representative Burrell, speak to your motion, please.
There's a few things in the wording that are having a problem. When it comes under the emergency medical technician, it doesn't state anything else about volunteers. It just says full and part-time employees. Groton Ambulance and Mystic River Ambulance also have volunteers, as in the volunteer fire departments. We added volunteers to the fire department aspect, but we didn't add the volunteers in for the emergency EMTs. Second, under the duties of the fire department, it only covers firefighters if they respond to a fire. The major calls to the fire department does are motor vehicle accidents, hazardous materials spills, and leaks and everything else. Also, they also are EMTs also, and they respond to, with a fire truck, not an ambulance, to EMT call, medical calls. So I believe that, I think in the 15, 20, whenever this happens, in the council or wherever it is, can deny these to these people because they're not listed as a firefighter died at a car accident, not at a fire, doesn't meet the criteria. And maybe now they'll add them in, but who knows what's going to happen in the future. So I believe I can't vote for this as it's written. It's too vague.
Thank you. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I, too, have a bunch of issues with the way this is written, and I'll go through them all. The first part about it, in the definitions, it lists the police departments that are affected by this, but it does not list the fire departments, and there's at least 8 or 9 fire departments here in the town of Groton that should be listed. And the reason for that is that we may be picking up firefighters who could be killed in the line of duty somewhere else. For example, I know of one individual who lives here in the town of Groton who's a paid firefighter in the city of Hartford. Same thing with ambulance services. They ought to be listed if it's our intent to protect the ambulance and fire departments that are listed here in the town of Groton, because EMTs can be working anywhere in the state, to be honest. Under the EMT duties, one of the things that jumped off the page at me is that not only do ambulance departments chase 911 calls, but they also do non-emergency medical transport, which means basically they're picking up an elderly person or a disabled person, driving them to a doctor's appointment. So they, you know, I'm 75 years old and I'm in a wheelchair, I get picked up, they take me to my physical exam, and they bring me home. So is that something that we want to accommodate or include in this legislation, and if it's not, it needs to be identified. Under the fire duties, Representative Burrell brought up the same thing I was going to bring up. You've got conflicting language of while returning from calls and while returning from fires. And it really calls, I think, encompass all of the activities that a firefighter encompasses. But something that also jumped off the page, and there's a couple of spots where it jumps off the page at me, and from the insurance world, we have this kind of conversation come up. In the middle of the night, the tones go out. They're driving either to the firehouse to pick up a truck, or they're driving right to the scene of the accident or the fire. But on their way home, maybe they stop at the grocery store to pick up a gallon of milk for breakfast. So where does our coverage stop? Does our coverage stop at the grocery store, or does our coverage stop when they finally get back to the house? In the insurance world, it stops at the grocery store. Under the definition of firefighter, it talks about a valid fire department located within the geographical boundaries of the town of Groton. I think that should be clarified because we have two fire departments that are border hoppers. Old Mystic and Mystic Fire Districts cover both Groton and Stonington. So one of the, and then on page 13 it says death while in the performance of duty. The last sentence says time to and from the place of business is not considered performance of duty. And I'd want to see that clarified. So does that mean at, again, 3 in the morning, they've been toned out to go to a call, accident or a house fire or medical issue, while they're driving from their home to the scene, and maybe they get into a bad car accident or are killed, are they not covered because the time to and from the place of business is not considered? So I have concerns about that. And then under valid ambulance services provider, again, I think this ought to be clarified. Let's just say, for example, that our volunteer houses, or quasi-volunteer houses in Mystic and Groton are toned out and are otherwise occupied, and so we have a mutual aid call, and AMR from Ledyard comes down, American Medical Response. That's an all-paid organization. Does this ordinance contemplate those employees? And then further down on page 14 of our paperwork, paragraph C, there's a sentence in here that I just would like to see clarified because it kind of jumped off the page at me. If the spouse subsequently purchases another residence in town and all qualifying criteria remain, then the tax abatement shall apply to the new residence. Could that be interpreted as if they didn't sell their original house, they now have a tax abatement on 2 houses? I think that ought to be clarified. On page 15, item G, it says if such surviving spouse remarries, the abatement shall cease commencing with the taxes on October 1st. I wrote how. There's no Google search engine for marriage licenses. Someone could get married in Mexico or somewhere in Europe, and we would never know. And there's no way, even if someone got married here in the town of Groton, well, maybe Betsy would see it, but they could get married in New London, and there's no way for any of us to know whether or not that person got remarried.
You have 20 seconds left.
Okay, well, I've got a few more things here. So under line H, the single person family household thing, this 400%, I think that needs to be clarified because the poverty level has multiple lines to it based on your family relationship. Again, the remarried thing, how, the taxes situation on part 2 of letter J, what's the proof that we're looking for? Essentially, I think this is benefits through an ordinance instead of negotiation. If we're going to provide firefighters or police officers with this kind of benefit, it should be through their collective bargaining agreement. And I really do have one more thing, and I'll shut up, I promise. Okay. The teachers, public works, linemen, all other employees of the town may also be wanting something like this. They could potentially come to us. I think this is a bad precedence. It's a bad bill, and it should not pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Chase.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I just have 1 or 2 little items.
Can you hold the microphone a little closer?
Sorry. I agree with Representative Scott about the marriage. You have no idea if someone gets married in Mexico, for instance, if they're married. There are many tax abatements already available to qualifying people. Groton, the remaining Groton taxpayers cannot afford this. For every tax abatement given out, the rest of the taxpayers have to pick up the slack. Right now, in 2022, a single person, 400% of poverty, which this ordinance calls for, is for $54,360. There are a lot of people in Groton who make less than that and pay their bills and taxes. So I'm voting yes to veto this. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Thomas?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm not going to reiterate all the other criticisms that have happened, been mentioned tonight. I'm appreciative of the comprehensive nature of the criticism, and I concur with a vast number of them. And I also think tax abatements, given the experience I've had over the past couple of years looking at a lot of these documents and just thinking about tax abatements in general, honestly, I think tax abatements are revenue expenditures, whether we want to classify them or as such or not. So I think we need to start looking at them like that. And so I am in favor of vetoing this ordinance as well. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Representative Fucci.
I agree with everything everybody has said here. And for all those reasons, this thing should not be done. And quite frankly, what we're finding is that the state can't, the city, town, cannot organize all the details. And the only people who really can are the state of Connecticut. And they're the ones that should organize this for the whole state, requiring some remuneration or whatever from the towns to support it. But honestly, this is way beyond our ability to deal with this issue on a fair and equal basis.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I won't hit the nail on the horse, but I agree that we cannot sit here and exclude others. I know some representatives here have said that you're missing linemen, other people that put their life on the line every day. I think we exclude a portion of our community every day if we were to put this into place. That being said, I think I only speak for myself, but that we wholeheartedly support our emergency workers, and this in no way reflects that that we're against them in any sort, but that this policy is not the right time, it's not the right place, and we shouldn't pass it. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Powers.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I thank everybody on the committee for all the hard work that we put forward to research and do the work as a committee to come forward and say that this isn't the way we want to see it done. So I'd like to thank everybody for that, and I'd like to make a motion.
It's already on the floors.
Okay.
Are there any other comments?
I need
Right.
a roll call vote.
We will do a roll call vote, just so that everyone is aware of the rules. Section 4.6 of the Town Charter empowers the RTM to veto an ordinance that has been newly adopted by the Town Council. Such a veto requires a 2/3 vote of the total membership of the RTM. The total membership of the RTM is 41. The moderator will ask the RTM membership if there's any members wishing to make a motion to veto. The rest of it isn't appropriate. So we would need 27.
28.
Just a point of clarification, we do have 2 vacancies. Does that play into our count tonight?
According to the town clerk,
What you just read?
Town clerk, it is 2/3 of the total membership.
It's what it says in the charter. It's not up to me. It's what the charter states.
So
it's
41 times
it's-
0.66 is
28.
27.06, so 28. We don't have 0.06 of a person. So 28.
Okay, so if you are voting, if you are in favor of the veto, it'll be a yes vote. If you are not in favor of the veto, it'll be no, and obviously abstention is an abstention. So
Is everybody clear on that? A yes vote means you are voting,
veto.
you are vetoing it. A no vote means you do not wish to veto it. Okay, we're doing a roll call vote.
Representative Adams? Yes. Bailey?
Yes. Yes.
Burrell?
Yes.
Bright? Casper?
Yes.
Chase? Kopp? Dean Shinbrot?
Yes.
Eben? Frickman?
Yes.
Fritchie? Gardner?
Yes.
Guinipiero? Hanscom?
Yes.
Is Gustafson here yet?
No.
Okay. Ivy? Yes. Jacome? Yes. Massett? Yes. I saw a yes, I didn't hear a yes.
Representative Massett, you're muted.
Thumbs up.
Can you give a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Thumbs up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Norman?
Yes.
Aubrey?
Representative Ober, you're muted.
Yes.
Thank you.
K. Powers?
Yes.
S. Powers?
Yes.
Pacino?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
V.C. Williams?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Wells? Oops, he's not here. Yes, he
He's
is.
there. Representative Wells?
I see him.
Representative Wells?
There he goes.
He just,
Where'd he go?
Oh, no.
You want a veto, or you not want a veto?
I don't want to veto.
Okay. Whitney?
Yes.
Rusk?
yes. So that is vetoed, 27 to 2 to 0. Oh, no, it is not vetoed. It passes. We have 25, 10, 15, 20, 25, 27 yeses,
Yes.
2 noes. And who? 28, 29, that's everybody. Yes.
Just so we can recap the math, how many members in the body?
There are
41?
41 members.
41. Okay. And 27 voted to veto.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
There's a .06, so we have 26 to .06, correct?
You can't round.
.41 times .666 is 27 point
Yep.
something.
You need 27.3.
Well, then it would be
27.3.
20, then it would be, then
You
it
have
would
to
be
get to
27.
28.
Why would it be
You have to
20?
get to 28, you don't round down.
You can't round up either.
You can't round up. It's
You have to have a whole person, you can't do a part. I just sent
That's
something
why you
out
get rid of
with
the 3.
Comments
Well,
explaining that.
That's,
You have to round up.
This argument happens all the time when we when we
I-
redo the
I've got something I
charter.
can send.
Yeah, we have the same
You
problem
don't-
with.
You don't round up with Robert's rules, you have to achieve that or better. You can't go below it.
Right, so 27.3? Oh, I see.
If there's a partial, you gotta go to 28.
We would need 28 people
Yeah.
if we have 41 people.
Well, there's 2 people that could change their mind.
It's a town charter. It's per the town charter. It's per the town charter. It would need a town charter change, not. It says.
Total membership.
Such a veto requires 2/3 vote of the total membership. And
that means.
I would argue that we have 39 members right now. A little rough. Town Manager Burt.
Vacancy.
I'm going to ask for a ruling on this one. Because I read
I
this.
I think that's correct, that it would be 39. I don't think it would be 41. I think it'd be how many you actually have. But
We have
will you
39
read me the wording
members
one more
at the
time?
moment.
Will you read it one more time?
It reads, such a veto requires a 2/3 vote of the total membership of the RTM. We currently have 39 members of the RTM. There are 2 vacant seats.
Right. I think it'd be 39, honestly.
So if we did, I don't want to make a ruling based on,
Well,
excuse me? That's out of order.
We can stand as it vetoed, and we can
Then it
record
would
it
be-
as vetoed, and if we get a different interpretation from a town attorney, which I don't think we will, I think they're going to uphold the 39, then, that's what'll happen, so it'll be just,
I have the town attorney on the line.
Oh,
Give me
okay.
1 second.
Thank you.
okay,
Um,
excellent.
a clarification on a rule in the charter. The charter, we're looking at veto of an ordinance. It says that you have to have 2/3 of the total membership to veto. Now, there's only 39 out of 41 filled, so would it be is total membership 39 of what's actually many people in place, or would it be 41, the total just seats there are, even if they're not filled?
I'm going to go on my gut. I don't know exactly, but I'm going to go on my gut and said if the town has only seated 39 people, it's those 39.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard. Thank you. I
Yes,
appreciate it.
thank
Can you
you.
double check tomorrow? Okay,
So
very
we
good.
are going to go with 39,
We'll
which
double
means
check
we
tomorrow,
need,
but I'm pretty sure it's
20
39.
yeah, so which means we need 26 votes, which means that is vetoed. If that changes,
You'll
we'll
know.
find out tomorrow.
You'll know.
So as of right now, it is vetoed. Thank you. Next up, Representative Flowers.
Well, we had a special meeting, was Thursday, October 6th. It had to do with the resolution to approve the Groton Public Schools DODEA grant, which was $1 million. We called to order on the 6th at 7:10. Representatives Chase, Jacome, Norman, Scott, Fritchie, and myself were present. Representative Gardner was excused. The new business was 3.1, 2022, which is in your package, -482-2 DODEA World Language Advanced Readiness Program, WLARP. Chairman Powers asked for the entire grant resolution to be read into the record. Moderator Rusk had the document and read it to the committee. Chairman Powers asked for a motion to accept the resolution, which Representative Jacome made and was seconded by Representative Chase. The discussion ensued. Superintendent Austin was with us, was asked by Representative Chase a variety of questions about the grant and the ability to fund it after the grant funding expired in 5 years. We also inquired into the educational benefits and the number of students which it directly impacted. The committee looked at the continuation of the program with teachers and how the Board of Ed will add 2 teachers after funding expires. The needs of multi-language programs in schools and the desire for advanced learning for college credits was also discussed. Chairman Powers called for a vote. 6 were in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstained. Motion to adjourn by Representative Scott, seconded by Norman. Adjournment ended at 7:38 p.m.
Any corrections to the minutes? And the minutes will remain as stand. Do you want to read the resolution, please?
Resolution approving the Groton Public Schools DODEA grant. Whereas Groton Public Schools were awarded a $1 million Department of Defense to accept the DODEA World Language Advancement and Readiness Program, WLARP grant, and whereas with the support of the DODEA, Groton Public Schools will improve and expand its world language program. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town Council authorizes the superintendents of schools, Susan Austin, to accept the 2022 DODEA WLARP grant in the amount of $1 million and to execute any necessary paperwork to implement the grant. Refer to the RTM 6.5.3. So moved.
Seconded by Jacome. Superintendent Austin is online. Superintendent, would you like to speak to this?
Or Chairman Watts?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Are you ready for me just to say anything, or I'll wait?
Wait one moment. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Superintendent Austin, could you just kind of brief us on the grant and how it's going to
Okay,
provide
thank
for the student body and how it's going to work after we're done with the grant? Thank you.
Oko.
Go ahead, Dr. Austin, or Superintendent Austin.
I have a question.
Superintendent, did you want to speak to this?
Yes, please.
No, Representative Bailey, hold on one second. Superintendent Austin, do you want
Okay.
to speak to this?
Well, I just wanted to say we are very proud that we received our number $6 million Department of Defense Education Activity Grant since I started here in 2014. We've had grants in literacy, mathematics, STEM careers, and this one I'm really so proud of because this one is, the title is called Global Mindedness with World Languages. And the idea is to expand and improve our world language program and have younger children start learning languages. We know that younger children do a really wonderful job with learning languages, and we're looking forward to really expanding our programs. We've surveyed parents and students before on the languages that are spoken in our homes, and we know that we have about 25% of our population which is Spanish speaking. So a lot of our young children come to us already speaking and having dual language as they're learning English. So the real goal of this is to see that all students really have a chance to be bilingual in our district and receive something called the Seal of Biliteracy. And by starting earlier and expanding the programs and the opportunities, we see that this is possible. A lot of our native speakers come in and they can take a course called, Spanish for the native speaker or Spanish in the workplace. And so they really get an example of how to improve their skills in reading and writing if they're already fluent in Spanish. So it's different than your typical Spanish 1, 2, and 3. So I'm really excited about this opportunity for our students. The Seal of Biliteracy, if you go to Southern Connecticut State University, it affords you 9 credits in college. So, it's certainly, and in careers, if you have the Spanish language, it can absolutely open doors in so many different careers. So whichever pathway a child takes, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for them. And this grant is mostly in the area of, affording professional learning, embedded coaching for over 5 years. There are 2 positions in there, which are the elementary language teacher positions, and there's some other managerial kind of costs, but really the grant should be self-sustaining with attrition and with us taking on more responsibility over the years with the grant. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I just wanted to give you kind of a landscape of this grant and the excitement that we all feel for it.
My apologies. Also, Board of Ed Chair Kim Shepherdson Watson is on. My apologies for not noticing you earlier. Did you want to add anything?
Thank you, moderator. No, I think that Susan had said that. Once again, I just would like to say thank you to the town, both for the RTM and for the town council to kind of get to this as soon as they could, because we need to kind of get rolling on the grant, because we sort of like get the money, or we get the grant and we're asked to start planning right away. And so I really appreciate the partnership that people do. And Moderator Russ, the reason why you couldn't find me was because I was incognito. I was John Burt for the first half of the meeting, but I'm back to being me.
Glad to see you. Representative Bailey, you had a question.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I have a question for the superintendent of schools. Excuse me. The cover sheet under section I, the $190,516, if you could note what source of funding that's coming from?
So in all of our operation budgets and in other grant budgets, we host a lot of professional learning. So while Dodea is really mostly affording all of those things that need to be done in this grant, we also have operating costs and other vehicles of supporting this endeavor. So it's not totally on Dodea. This really helps us with sustainability in the end, Representative Bailey, because we know after 5 years, we don't want to stop this. We want it to keep going. So we will be able to do that between the attrition as we're, really making some efficiencies in the way of staffing, and as people retire and newer people come on.
Okay, so it'd be coming out of education?
Well, education and other grant sources. So we've earmarked funding that typically goes for professional learning that will also help support this work.
Wow. All right. Thank you very much.
Representative Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Superintendent Austin, just to follow up, on the September 7th Town Council meeting, when you discussed this, you mentioned that accepting this grant would also enable you to help fund the ROTC program that's due to start next year?
ROTC?
Is that correct?
Well, can I just explain that as part of this grant, we were, one of the priorities was that we had to apply for a junior ROTC or another side organization, which is within the same Department of Defense, called Naval National Defense Cadet Corps. We did receive from the Department of Defense and the Secretary of the Navy that the application was approved, and we're very excited. As you know, we're a military community, and we've been saying for years, both community members and the board and the superintendents, Mike and I both, that we really see that at least 30 students stand up at graduation and are going to serve our country, and it makes us really proud. And so by having this kind of a program, a military science program in our career pathway, it will really afford students maybe a better chance of getting an appointment at the Naval Academy or any of the academies, or else if they enlist to serve their country and get their education that way, they can often go from an E1 to an E3 or 4. So it absolutely gives them leverage. And there are funds that will help support some of the professional learning in that endeavor. We also are working with the Navy base, and they're going to help us with opening up the thrift shop to get uniforms for the kids. We're starting out this year as a club, so that we'll have it ready to go, and the board will have it all approved by next year. And so as part of being an NDCC district, we also, the Navy will give us some of the marching equipment and those kind of things. So it's kind of spread out, but we're getting a lot of support with that.
So the short answer is yes? There will be, this starts the
Yeah, that was a longer answer.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we are voting on the DODEA World Language Advancement Readiness Program, accepting a grant in the amount of $1 million. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 You know what?
Aye.
I'm going to do a roll call
Aye.
vote because
No, I just need a no vote.
Aye.
if everybody online could please do a hand raise if they want to vote aye. Keep your hands up.
Representative Wells.
Need Representative Wells and Casper.
There's a
Okay.
hand. There's a hand.
And do we have Wells? Yes.
Yep.
Okay, we have everybody online. Correct? Yes. Okay, everybody in the room, if you could please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear who that was.
No, that was an aye. There was 12 saying aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining?
Wait. Nope, all set.
Okay.
That's
That
unanimous.
passes. We
29.
currently have 28 people.
Somebody leave?
Somebody left online.
Oh, 28.
1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We currently have 10. Actually, we have 27. Because we have 17 in the room, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 online. So we have 27. So that passed 27, 0 to 0.
Your count's got to be wrong.
Okay. Chairman Watson.
Madam Honorary, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you all. You make
No,
us
I'm
all
counting
Groton
myself.
proud. And I'll
There's
report
9,
back
10,
to you and let you know how it's
people.
going along the way.
17.
Great.
Person.
Thank you.
And there's 10
Thank
online.
you.
Yep,
2 people left?
2 people left. Representative Gardner
Yeah.
and
Nobody else? Hands come? Nope. I don't see anybody else going.
somebody else left. We have Representative Dean Shinbrot, Casper, Bailey, Hanscom, VC Williams, Frickman, Kristen Powers, Whitney, and Wells.
That's right. So all of them people we
So
lost.
that is only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
Did you get Aubrey?
9, 10, 11. There's 8, 9, 10. Oh, is there, hold on.
There's 12 people online, members. You didn't get Aubrey.
I missed Aubrey. You're
Yeah.
right. So
No,
that
we
passed
have
28.
28.
My apologies.
Going nuts here.
28-0-0. All right. We are on to Chairman Watson. If you can just recap what you talked about last time and
Yeah,
then
I plan
read
to, yeah.
the recommendation.
Okay, well, last month, I read our committee minutes from August 31st, where we recommended changing Rule 9.6, public petitions, and I printed out the email that we recently got from the town clerk, where she has typed it out word for word, what the committee recommended, and basically, it's just the insertion of not allowing an ex officio member of the RTM to speak under public petitions in addition to RTM members. Should I read the whole thing, Madam Moderator?
At the bottom of, in our minutes, the recommended action for draft motion, do you want me to read this? Because I have it in front of me. It is, any member of the public
Sure,
who
go
is
ahead.
not a voting member of the RTM or an ex officio member wishing to speak may notify the RTM via the clerk of the RTM at any time prior to the hour of the meeting, prior to the hour the meeting is called at which they desire to speak. That is what is
Thank
in
you,
our
I have
agenda.
that here too. I mean,
Perfect.
that's okay. I would like to make that a motion.
Okay. Seconded by Representative Scott. Motion made by Representative Watson. Any comments? Yes, Representative Thomas.
So just to be clear, the proposed new rule would just be the insertion of 3 words, an ex officio member? That's the
Four
change
words,
that we're
yes.
making?
Yes.
And so this rule 9.6 was changed somewhat during the January-February rules change to the 33rd RTM to adjust the time allocation,
Put the
right?
Not 9.6.
Public petitions. We
That's-
changed the
yeah.
time allocations to be not less than 5 minutes unless different time determined by the moderator. I remember debating on language.
Right.
I just want to be clear,
I
like,
think it stayed the same.
this rule 9.6 hasn't really changed besides the time limit that we changed the language on in January.
I don't believe there was a time change. I believe it was 5 minutes before.
Right, no, we clarified the language. I
Okay.
got the notes, we can check it out. But, I mean, we clarified the language so that it was like a different time determined by the moderator. There was a lot of debate about that. But my point is that substantively, like, the rule hasn't changed much beyond that. Yet, historically, the RTM has allowed RTM members and ex officio members to speak under citizens' petitions as citizens primarily. It happened under the 32nd RTM, it happened under the 31st RTM, and I want to dare say the 30th, but I don't know if I actually lived in town back then. I have to check the years. But since I've been watching the RTM and being part of it, it has been a thing that has been accepted by the moderator, allowed. So what I'm saying is this rule 9.6, you know, it's a matter of interpretation. It's not, there's nothing in this language that is banning anyone from speaking under citizens' petitions. That's just the chosen interpretation of it. So, well, I can appreciate the sentiment, and I also want to note that the recommended action still, the language wasn't changed despite my complaints last month.
And I asked for it to be changed, and it was
Yeah,
not.
so I still am, you know, troubled by the language of the staff recommendation. All that aside, the language has not changed. So whether we do this change or not and add in ex officio member or not, it really doesn't matter. What matters is the interpretation of the moderator. The moderator is the chair of this body, and this moderator has chosen to use this rule to restrict the
You're out of
ability for
order.
us
You're
to,
out of order because the moderator has not used this to restrict.
in
The
February,
moderator
in
is-
February,
no,
you
excuse
said
me.
that. You
Excuse
said
me.
that.
I have the floor right now.
You
I'm
chose
gonna-
to do this.
I did not. The ruling here, the rules
Excuse me, I have
state-
the floor. I mean,
no,
what are we
I'm
doing here?
telling you, you're out of order. What I'm saying is that it
So-
has stated, no, excuse me, I am going to finish my sentence.
All right, I reserve my
rule
time then?
says-
Were you clocking
I
this?
haven't, that's fine. You can reserve your time. What it states in Rule 9.6 is any member of the public who is not a voting member of the RTM. That is a rule that was voted on by this body. I do not pick and choose which rules I'm going to enforce. If it is brought to my attention that I've made an error, I'm happy to correct it. But I am not picking and choosing what rules I'm going to enforce. So that is not a correct statement. So if it was not enforced by the last RTM, that was the choice of the moderator and the members of that body. But this was a rule agreed upon by this RTM, and it will be agreed upon by the RTM. It will be enforced.
Again, I guess that's a matter of interpretation, because
It's not a matter
honestly,
of interpretation.
like, well, I mean, that's your defense of that. That's fine. You can have that. I don't see it that way. So, I mean, this rule is more of an allowance for the public to speak as opposed to a disallowance for others to speak. That's all I'm saying, is that this is an interpretation matter. It's not a rule matter. There's nothing in here saying you cannot. So there's that to consider. So, I mean, you guys can do what you want with this. As far as I'm concerned, it's a matter of moderator interpretation. So,
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This rule change was actually a recommendation or a referral that I had asked for, just to button up or tighten up the language. There was, you know, I understand where Representative Thomas is coming from. There was, I think, one meeting where he was allowed to speak under citizens' petitions, but the moderator corrected yourself, and you said that would be the last time that this would happen, just because we were still getting ourselves organized. So all this rule does is button up the language. If you are a member of this RTM, if you are an ex officio member, which the charter defines as members of the town council, the board of ed, and it goes on to list a whole bunch of other people that are ex officio members. Second? There's four, yeah, there's, being advised, there's 14 on the list. This doesn't prevent you from speaking. There is a wonderful line, the ex officio members can speak under other business on our agenda. And you're more than welcome to be recognized by the moderator as a member of this body or as an ex officio member of this body under other business to bring before us whatever business is necessary for you to bring before us. So I recommend that this rule change be passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Evan.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Yeah, I would like to remind the body that actually this 33rd did allow the moderator of the 33rd RTM Representative or Moderator Rusk did allow members to speak. She allowed Representative Powers to speak at our January meeting, and he went on for quite a while, and that was fine until the next meeting when other members chose to speak, and that's when she said it would not be allowed. It is entirely the interpretation of the moderator, and as a former moderator, I can tell you that. It's the moderator's interpretation of this rule. I read this rule very differently to allow people who are non-voting members to speak during this time. And if you read the last sentence, it actually says, and I gotta get my reading glasses on, it actually says, sorry, gotta find it. Oh, no, it says, the public will be subject to the same restrictions as any RTM member. So I read that to say that RTM members have the same rights to speak under citizens' petitions. I often want to speak as a resident of Groton and not as a District 2 representative. This is my right. And I have taken it, and I've allowed other members to take it. And I am very much not in favor of this. I would just also like to say that the sheet I received in my minutes did have a staff recommendation that started, it is unfortunate that the RTM has to consider adding the ex officio members, and goes on to say that they think that it's necessary to curtail the continued misuse of RTM public petitions. I am actually outraged that any staff member of the town would have the gall to weigh in on the RTM deliberations and the public testimony that is presented at this body. That's just outrageous that any staff member would come up and have some kind of opinion about the rules of this body. And I think that's out of line. And to the...
Agreed. I ask that it be removed.
And it's not removed, it's still here, and no one is taking responsibility for it. So I can't imagine that this body wants to limit the debate of people in this town, whether it's an ex officio member, a member of the RTM, or a public citizen. We all have a right to come here and give our grievances, give our kudos, give our comments, our concerns. That's what this body is for. We represent 7 districts in this community. We're 41 members, 39 sitting, and we all have different opinions, and that's the strength of this body. And if you want to limit it and have a moderator who interprets it to be limited and uses every rule in her, every interpretation of
You're out of order. You're out of order.
Okay.
Decorum. We have decorum rules.
Yeah, we have a lot of rules that aren't followed in this body.
That's not true. Thank you. Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Yes, Representative Norman.
Hi. First, I want to say I understand the frustrations of folks here, but I consider getting to be a part of this body and showing up a privilege. We are all privileged to get to do this. I disagree with this because I think that every person who resides in Groton should get their time to speak, and when we try to bring into the rules of limiting someone's ability to speak, I can take 5 minutes once a month to hear from literally anyone. That's my job, that's my privilege. We all should hold ourselves to that standard. I don't have comments on old moderators and new moderators. I don't know that that's appropriate for this situation at all, and we are better than that. But we are also good enough to say, I'm going to take 5 minutes a month, and I'm going to listen. And we should just do that. And so I say everyone should vote this down and should say, you know what, I show up, I can take 5 minutes. It's all you got to do. It's fine.
Representative Jacome.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I think it should be, stated in the record to be clear, the notion that we are in some manner restricting public speaking is not real, not true. What it's doing is an ex officio member already has the ability to speak. They are, in terms, able to speak equal to us as this body, as we are all equal. So in terms, how are they able to speak more than us when in this playing field we are all equal? So in the notion that we are restricting public comment in any sorts is just not true. My opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I just have a request from you that clapping is a interference to conduct of a meeting, and I make a request that we all refrain from it. Thank you.
Okay, I don't think I can tell people they can't clap, but if we can kind of hold it down because people online can't hear well.
Probably sounds weird.
Representative Casper.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I think the purpose of the citizen petitions is for those who are not in government can speak. And to have that period open to members, whether ex officio or not, to speak, detract from the purpose of having that for those that can't normally speak. Any member who has a grievance can bring it up during the regular meeting. And it just seems absurd that people are saying that they should speak when, the regular citizens' time. And then we're gonna have a whole session of members speaking about this and that and, and not even have the meeting yet. I think it's absurd that this rule wasn't put in place sooner. I support the rule.
Okay. Representative Watson.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I would submit that we as RTM members, the rule already said that we can't speak under citizen public comments. That was the rule that we passed by a majority when we passed these rules. I would say that by leaving ex officio members out of that, gives them more of an opportunity to speak as an RTM member. If I can't speak under citizens petitions, but an ex officio member can, and they can also speak all the other times that I can speak as an RTM member, I think you either have to add ex officio member to RTM members or take them all out and let all the RTM members and ex officio members speak under public comments. I stand by my motion.
Thank you. Councilor Bordelon, you had your hand up.
So, as a person who started with this body, there's times at the council that there's things that does not pertain to my district, like District 3, that should swamp down a council meeting if it's not on the agenda. If there was a concern in my district about plowing or anything like that, I'm still a taxpayer first before an elected official. In the past, when I got involved in government 5 years ago, almost 6, you would stand up here and say, I speak as a citizen and a taxpayer. I'm also an elected official. You would give that caveat. We don't limit you guys from coming to the council and speaking under public comment. You're allowed to come up and speak.
They're not ex officio members.
Right, but it doesn't, what I'm trying to say, there's no difference is what I'm saying. Can I just finish and take my time? I think it's more important that I just come. If it's a personal thing that is affecting the whole town, I speak under public comment, I'm done. If not, then I'll just submit something every week that I'll speak under, every month under the thing, and I'll just leave it open just in case there's an issue. I should have a place and a platform somewhere as a taxpayer of the town, of a whole body where I can come to and say, I have a major concern, or something's going on. It's not exercised every time. I mean, most of the time, there's maybe 2 speakers here, 3, unless there's a major issue. So if you prefer, I'll just raise my hand and speak, but I would prefer to do it at the beginning and then be done and not have to cloud your meeting. That makes the most sense. I'm using and exercising my right to speak as a taxpayer. I disclose it at the beginning. Now, if I wanted to speak as a counselor fully, I could add that under other business and have a whole presentation for 5 minutes, is what you're saying. Why bother? That just clouds the whole thing. If it's pertaining or an opinion and I'm just informing you of some constituents' concerns that I've heard, come at the beginning. I don't even take the 5 minutes, I take 2 minutes or 3, or I don't come. So I just hope that this is not the way we're going to go. If you choose to vote that way, that's your decision, and I respect you as an RTM, and I will submit accordingly to speak where I should. But that doesn't give me the time to speak as a citizen. Will that time then mean that I'm speaking as an elected ex officio member, is what you're saying? That concerns me because I might not want to be an ex officio member at that time. So where then could I speak as a citizen? That's my question with this rule. So if I wanted to come up here and just speak as a citizen with a concern, where is that different if I have to abide by the rule of an ex officio member and use my time somewhere else? I don't see where I can make my own grievances. So that's my question.
Okay.
Does anyone have that answer of how that would, I mean, whoever put the rule forward?
Go ahead, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I think to kind of piggyback on what Representative Watson was saying a minute ago is, as a member, ex officio member, speaking under public comment as it's given now, you actually get 10 minutes of time where we as members of this group only get 5. So you would be getting a special privilege of an additional 5 minutes of time to speak before this body on a particular subject. And this levels the playing field. You're always going to be an elected official or an ex officio member, and I don't think it's right or fair that certain people can come up here and say, well, I'm not wearing that hat right now, and when you're always wearing that hat. And that's why I put this rule in. It levels the playing field for all members, whether they're an actual sitting member of this body who cannot get up there and stand at that counter, and we all will be able to speak. Nothing is limited. I mean, you're getting the same amount of time as everybody else on this body, and you'll get to be able to speak under the other business portion of the agenda.
So my last thing then, and I'll be done, is it would seem to me that you would then, if you want to level the playing field, let the person choose. Do they want to be a citizen or an ex officio member? They speak once. That would be a better rule then. Because, for me, I already had my town council meeting night. If I have some other things I want to update you on, it would make sense to have it at the beginning and then just be done. So I don't know why it's kind of a this or that, or why are we worried who's got more than other? I mean, I barely see it ever exercised. I barely have seen anybody use the 2 opportunities. But if there's a concern, duly noted, that's your choice. But it's very bothersome to see that this is becoming more and more limiting, more and more reasons to limit people's discussion. But thank you for your time.
Representative Thomas.
I just want to thank Representative Scott, Jacome, and Watson for making my point for me, in the sense that the primary rationale behind their reasoning seemed to be that they felt like they were getting less time than somebody else, another member of the body, ex officio as it is. So it is a restriction. And so if we want to be concerned about leveling the playing field, then we should ease the restrictions and level the playing field. Not everyone is required to get up there and speak under citizens' petitions. Some people feel like they want to, and they want to exercise that right as a taxpayer, as a citizen first. And we have to reckon with the fact that we do live a dual existence as elected officials and as private citizens. And it's an ongoing negotiation between the 2 identities. So, having us able to speak, and again, I do remind you all that, from the 32nd rules to the 33rd rules, nothing much has changed in this rule besides how we describe the time limits. And then with this 3 words. So it was interpreted one way by another moderator, and now it's being interpreted by another. And, you know, we lived under the 30-second rules for the first couple months, and it was interpreted as allowing for public comment by RTM members in January. And then in February, it was not, but it was challenged, and then we allowed it for February, and it was notified that would be the last time. Who made that choice? It was not the Rules Committee. We didn't discuss that. The moderator made that choice. Check the minutes. So, to that end, I mean, I would just urge you all to, okay, so the other thing I wanted to share too is, like, you know, during the budget meetings, you know, I lamented a number of times there were RTM members who, in discussing whatever budget item they had concerns with, would go on to share some personal story about how they related to that budget item. And there was an odd phenomenon happening at the time where certain members seemed to want to point of order other members as a way of shutting down because it wasn't directly on topic.
Can we keep on topic?
I see, there it is. All right, so what I'm talking about is that we as a body of elected members, we are here to help facilitate the community conversation, and it happens in many ways that are
Representative Thomas, there's a point of order.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, right here. Like, thank you, Representative Massett. No, yeah.
Madam Moderator,
Yes.
we're talking about a specific rule.
Correct. Can we
not
please stay on
about
topic,
members.
Representative Thomas?
This is on the topic, and if you give me 2 minutes, I'm going to bring it all back, big circle. Thank you very much, Representative Massett. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now,
Representative Thomas,
normally
you're
in a
out of order.
yes,
You are out of
but
order.
normally you get to
are
defend
out
a point
of
of
order.
order.
You are out of order.
You're not allowing me
Please
to
put the
defend
microphone
my
down
point.
and let me speak.
You're not allowing me to defend
Please
my point.
allow me to speak.
Please allow me to speak. Please allow me to speak.
You're out of
Representative Massett.
order. So if you can stick to the topic of this specifically, ex officio members speaking during public comment. That is the comment, or that is what we're discussing tonight. I will not let you speak over me. You can speak to the motion on the floor, and that is it.
Right, okay, so my point is that as elected members of the community, we are here to help the community communicate with itself. And that happens in ways that are implicit and explicit, all right? Sometimes we do it explicitly when we're talking to a very particular point of contention. Other times, when people relate a personal story as they're coming around to advocate for a certain position, they're sharing more of their life experience. And it's a great opportunity that we have as a community to absorb that and understand, attain some empathy from another point of view. So I would encourage this body to allow for more latitude, not less. Let's please get off the thin rail and just let us be and let us, you know, let it happen organically. Trust the process. Let the conversations happen. Let us own both identities as a taxpayer, private citizen, and an elected official. Thank you.
Representative Chase.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. If anybody watches any meeting in this town, I don't care if you have a taxpayer hat on or whatever body you're sitting on, their personal opinions are put forth. So I don't think there's any worry about somebody not getting their point across as a taxpayer or whatever body they're sitting on.
Any other comments? Oh, go ahead.
If you can't do it in 5 minutes, you've already said too much.
Are there any other comments? So, Rule 6.4.5 states. Oops. Yeah. Come on up.
She could sit in the chair.
No, she's at the microphone.
Yeah, I mean, she could take a while.
Councilor Franco.
Thank you. As a town councilor, I've come to many RTM meetings over, numerous years here, and historically, I would sit here and just listen. And if anybody in the RTM had a question about maybe what came before you that came down from the town council, The RTM members would say, could one of the counselors come up and answer this and explain why? We didn't come here to exert our position on top of you. You are all elected officials. You represent all areas of Groton. We were here to answer questions for you. That's what we were here for. I'm not going to talk about exactly whether you vote yes or no on the ordinance, but as an elected official, you've been elected by the people to represent. I mean, I would come and answer questions if you'd like, but it's not for me to exert myself upon all of you. I have a platform. It is the town council. And I thank you all for everything you do and for coming out every month and dealing with all the issues within our town. And I thank you.
Thank you. All right, so seeing no other conversation, under RTM Rules 6.4.5, Responsibilities of the Rules and Procedures Committee, it states, the rules as recommended by this committee shall be adopted by a 2/3 vote of those present and voting with prior notice to the full RTM on this item on the agenda, or by the majority vote of the full RTM. Seeing that we do not have a full RTM, we have 28 members currently. 2/3 of 28 is 19 votes to pass this. Can we please do a roll call vote?
That's right. Adams, are we voting yes or no to the?
Yes or no to adding
should read the whole
it's
thing.
any member of the public who is not a voting member of the RTM or an ex officio member wishing to speak may notify the RTM via the clerk of the RTM at any time prior to the hour of the meeting is called at which they desire to speak. A yes would mean adopting this. A no would be not adopting that.
Yes.
Okay. Bailey?
Yes.
Burrell?
Yes.
Bright?
Yes.
Casper?
Yes.
Chase? Kopp? Dean Shinbrot?
Yes.
Eben?
No.
Frickman?
Yes.
Fritchie? Guinipiero?
Yes.
Hanscom?
Yes.
Ivy? Jacome?
Yes.
Massett?
Yes.
Norman? Aubrey?
Yes.
K. Powers?
Yes.
S. Powers? Pacino?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Thomas? V.C. Williams?
No.
Watson?
Yes.
Wells?
No.
Whitney?
No.
Rusk?
Yes. So that passes 20 to 7 to 1. Any budget discussion?
And just to let you know, on a 2/3 vote, an abstention isn't legal, but that's okay, we do them all the time.
The abstention doesn't count as anything.
Well, it's actually not even, you can't register an abstention.
Any further budget discussion tonight? Yes, Representative Thomas. Seeing none, other business. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I want to talk for a few minutes about the Brantford Manor situation. I know there's been a lot of pressure that's been put on the town and the city with respect to the tax abatement and what's getting done and allegedly not getting done. And my heart does break for the people who live there. I can't imagine living in a home that is full of mold and making people sick and yeah, I just can't imagine it, and I hope and pray that they're able to come up with a solution. But that solution may not necessarily be us, and that's what I want to talk about. I just want to talk in round numbers for a minute. I thought it was 444 units, 442 units, somewhere in there is the number of units that live there. They're getting paid a market rate by the federal government. And let's say that market rate, for discussion purposes, $2,200 a month. The average rent, I think, that's being paid based on people's income could be around $200 a month, which means our tax dollars, our federal tax dollars, are paying the owners of that property roughly $2,000 a month, times 444 units is $888,000 a month, or just shy of $11 million a year of our federal tax dollars are going into that property. And unfortunately, I think the real people that are responsible for the situation are Congressman Joe Courtney, Senator Blumenthal, and Senator Chris Murphy, because they are the ones who have control over the $11 million a year that that property is earning by housing those people in those terrible homes. So I want to read into the record 2 letters that our state senator, Heather Summers, has sent to those 3 individuals. It's addressed to Joe Courtney, it's addressed to Richard Blumenthal, it's addressed to Chris Murphy. The first one's dated September 5th. The residents of Brantford Manor and Groton are experiencing dangerous and unacceptable public health situation which requires your immediate help and attention. As you know, Brantford Manor is
Point of order.
What's your point?
I think, if I might, this is an inappropriate statement so close to an election. We know exactly what it's about, and it shouldn't be permitted.
He's allowed to read a letter.
And it plays into a request that I've made, a referral request I made to have Blumenthal appear before us.
That was a long time ago, too.
And he hasn't responded. So as you know, Brantford Manor is a housing and urban development HUD-operated facility with 444 apartments. It's home to some of our most vulnerable citizens, many families with young children. They have been struggling with mold and other health hazards at this location for many years. I do appreciate Senator Blumenthal's visit to Brantford Manor and his pledge to help improve the deplorable conditions there. However, progress has been extremely slow. This is why today I'm calling for your office I'm calling on you to request the Office of the Inspector General to audit the federal HUD funding that has been received by the owner of Brantford Manor. In this situation, everyone must be held accountable for the ongoing health hazards at this facility. The public needs to be assured that those overseeing and managing these federal monies are putting them to proper and effective use. The people who live in Brantford Manor need us all to fight for them and protect them. Thank you for considering this pursuit of an audit so we can get pressing on the questions answered. I know that each of you are aware of the seriousness and the time sensitivity of this matter. I look forward to your prompt attention to this issue. And again, another letter was sent on October 5th, basically saying the same thing. I won't read the whole thing, but it basically says in early September, I wrote you a note to the residents of Brantford Manor and Groton are experiencing a dangerous and unacceptable situation, and there's been no response. So we have our senator asking for these 3 elected federal officials to come and do something about it. I've asked for them to appear, at least one of them to appear before this body. You know, a $500,000 tax abatement, I know it seems like a lot of money, but it's really a pimple on the rear end of the overall problem. And it's not going to get solved by us. It's not going to get solved by a referral that we study the problem. I don't think our body, this RTM, has any authority over anything unless the council, whatever the council does, requires us to either veto or approve an ordinance that they've passed. We really need to encourage, and a majority of this body are Democrats. 100% of the council body is Democrats. Get your federal people here to do something about it, because it's something that they need to deal with. And that's all I have to say on the matter. Thank you.
And just for correction, there is a Republican on town council. Representative Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I did just email out that referral about an hour ago.
Okay.
This is my referral asking the moderator to form an ad hoc research and report committee with the task of cataloging and categorizing all available housing complexes in the town of Groton for the purpose of finding housing for the current and future displaced peoples of Brantford Manor. The resulting report should include all pertinent information such as, but not limited to, current occupancy-vacancy ratio, determination of subsidized or unsubsidized, determination of HUD affiliation, determination of tax abatement recipient, determination of ability and willingness to allow for Brantford refugees, quote unquote, with housing assistance from town or ARPA-related funds, determination of possible funding sources for tenant relief and assistance. Also, please consider this my request to serve as a member of this committee or a chair if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Powers.
Madam Moderator?
One moment. Representative Powers has the floor.
Wait.
Representative Power has the floor.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I think that everybody in this body, everybody in this town, and anybody that's lived in any type of mold-infested area like these people are living in, everyone has compassion for it. I don't think that our federal legislators don't have compassion for these people, first of all. Second of all, whether they appear before this body or somewhere else, HUD is in charge of handling the money, not them. They are elected officials, and they give money out to all states, not just Connecticut. So, more importantly, I don't think it's a finger-pointing item. I think it's how are we going to go to correct the problem. And if them being here is essential to the problem being corrected, then they'll appear. I don't really think that's the real solution. I think we've worked hard as a community to try to address the solution, and we continue to address it. And the agreement that we have for the abatement, we're working at it. And it's a legal recourse that every person that's there has to do something about their health. They have recourse. There's all kinds of legal options that are going into this. And I guarantee you HUD's looking into it, way beyond the scope of what you and I or any of us can imagine. So personally, I feel for every person that's living in that condition. I think every one of us has struggled or had a strife in their life. And you know what? If I had a house that I could put them in, I'd put them in a house. But we don't have that opportunity. We're not the ones doing that. The federal government has to step up to the plate. And if there's anything we can do about it, call your senator, call your congressman, and see. That's the assertive thing we can all do as a body. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Massett.
Madam Moderator, there may be another way to accomplish what Representative Thomas wants, rather than establishing an ad hoc committee or a study group or whatever. That information should be readily available, maybe in the planner's office. So we may want to look at that before we start forming committees to do stuff.
Thank you, Representative Massett. Any other comments? Anything else under other business? Representative Thomas.
Any response to the referral?
I'm up here. I have not been able to read it. I will read it when I get home.
I just read it.
I know, but if I can get the information from staff members and don't have to form a committee, then we'll get it from staff members. So I will run it past staff to see if we can get that information before the next meeting. If not, then we will discuss it then.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mo-
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we are adjourned. Bailey and Jacome.
Thank you.